Everyone, this is Denise from Essential Wellness. Today we are welcoming Lindsey Fine, Veggie Mama from Shanghai, and we're going to be discussing raising plant-based and or vegan children. So we know that this is a fairly hot topic because there's quite a lot of discussion on Facebook and in the newspapers about just the whole concept of raising plant-based children. So first of all, let's just introduce Lindsey Fine, and I'll let Lindsey tell us a little bit about herself and her role as a mum and some of the work that she's doing in Shanghai. Okay. Hi, Lindsey, over to you.
Hello, I'm really so happy to be here and really thankful to Denise for having me on here to share my story with you guys. So as you mentioned, I'm a veggie mama. I've been vegan for about a year or so, give or take a little bit now, and was a vegetarian for many years. Before that, about 13 years. And when we were getting ready to start a family, my husband and I had the conversation about how we would raise our kids, because at the time he was still a meat eater, not a big meat eater, but definitely a meat eater. And but luckily for me, my sister-in-law is vegetarian, and so they already started a family and decided to raise their kids the vegetarian. And my husband kind of felt a little more comfortable that way. Okay, maybe it's okay if she's doing it, then it might be okay. So we researched a little bit online and found that actually there are many doctors who also support the fact or the idea that you can raise your kids be vegetarian. At the time, that was my focus, and as I've been doing more research myself and become vegan myself, I have seen that even more and more doctors are recommending are saying that you can raise your kids vegan as well. So, well, I'm the only vegan in my family. My kids and husband basically eat vegan, especially at home, because I don't have dairy products in the house. I don't have eggs in the house. So whatever I cook at home is vegan, and they love it. Like they all love it. So I started out cooking at home because when I became vegetarian, excuse me, I had no idea how to cook. Like I could barely boil pasta. Like I couldn't even do that right. So I was like really sad for the first year because I was eating like salads and boca burgers like every day. It was like lettuce, tomato, avocado, boca burger for like all of my meals. So I had to learn how to cook if I wanted to survive, because I was not going to live the rest of my life like that. And my mom was really funny because she didn't know what to do with me either. So my first Thanksgiving was so sad because I had like these hard soy cubes to eat and some and I had these hard soy cubes to eat with the veggies, of course. But it was like I felt like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like I can't do this. So I was really motivated to cook, to learn how to cook. And once I started that, I just couldn't stop. I became obsessed with vegetarian food and just feeding people. I think I got more joy out of like giving it to people and seeing their reaction than I did out of the actual cooking. So that I wanted to feed more people. So even though I didn't like all like the prepping and the cleaning up, I wanted to feed people so much that it made it worth it. So I just continued to feed people. Came to Shanghai, still loved it. Couldn't find food here to eat very easily, so I had to even more rely on cooking at home. And I had so much food. I didn't have any more people to give. It was just my husband and I. So I started selling the food I was making at markets. Eventually opened a small vegetarian, at first, but later vegan cafe called Happy Buddha, and sold some of our core products like seitan, vegan cheeses, vegan butter, and those kinds of items. And it was a wild ride, I'll tell you that much. I love the cooking part business. I had no idea. I learned along the way, stumbled and fell many times. And in the end, it just got to be a lot with the restaurant. I had 2 kids in between, was still working at my school job full time for some of that time. So now I closed the restaurant last year, And now I'm doing a blog where I can still share my food and hoping to later expand that and help more people. So it's been a really like long and weird journey that I never expected would take me to where I am today, but I would not ever change it. And it started by the decision to go plant-based, or the decision to go vegetarian. Took my life in a totally different direction, and I'm so happy that it did, because even though there were a lot of challenges, I'm like a totally different person because of it. And now to see like my husband changing his diet, he's become vegetarian, largely vegan, and he is telling everybody, his students at school, he's telling them, he's telling teachers at school, because he thinks more people should know about this choice and how it can help you, but also help the planet. And that's his big thing, like how we can help the planet through the food that we eat or choose not to eat. And that's been the biggest thing for him that really touched him, that has made him want to change his life as well.
That sounds wonderful. Yes, I totally relate to all of that, especially the having to learn how to cook again once you become vegan. I myself went plant-based 37 years ago, and I didn't raise my children vegetarian or vegan. They were probably had a great deal more plants in their diet than most people did, most children did. But at that time, I had no idea that it was possible to raise children plant-based and vegan. And just for our audience out there is a difference between plant-based and vegan. Plant-based is generally just a focus on plants. And so we also have another term that's called whole food plant-based. So, for example, what we're actually going to discuss today is probably the differences between veganism, non-veganism, and whole food plant-based. And so the journey that I've been on is I've been learning more and more about whole food plant-based and how it can meet all of our nutritional needs. Whereas 37 years ago, when I first went plant-based, there was no education. There was just nothing. I had 2 books. I had one by Dr. Pritikin, by Nathan Pritikin, and I had another called Diet for a Small Planet. And that was pretty much all there was. And then I, 21 years ago, ended up in China, and not much then. And then all of a sudden, we've had this sudden boom of materials and videos and podcasts and all of this information out there, which is absolutely wonderful. And so going plant-based and being whole food plant-based has never been easier. Veganism, on the other hand, is both eating plant-based, but it's not necessarily totally, it can be healthy, and sometimes it may not be healthy. So we'll also have a bit of a discussion about that. And then, of course, you've got the non-vegan diet, and the non-plant-based diet, which is what has been referred to in many countries as the SAD diet, so the standard American diet, the standard Australian diet, which tends to be focused on animal protein, particularly protein, but animal protein, and it is raising a whole host of health issues. Now, Lindsey, as an educator in Shanghai and as a parent in Shanghai, have you noticed that amongst the Chinese parents that there is this belief that if my child must have more and more protein, must have more and more dairy?
Yes, 100%. And I think that's that's going to be a big challenge, I think, to overcome. And the reason I think we are doing what we are doing is because we want to help people everywhere, especially here, avoid the problems that we've seen Americans and Australians have, to avoid those issues. Because, a population this size, that's going to be devastating. And we see the trend. We know the statistics are showing us that obesity and diabetes are on the rise here. And we know we have the power to stop that from becoming an epidemic. just by changing the way people eat. However, the information here is very similar to the information we got growing up. You have to eat a lot of meat. You have to drink a lot of dairy for strong bones and strong teeth. And that information, even even in America, is still a very widely held belief. But now that I feel like I feel like I have to share that with other people, and I have to help teach them that that's not true. And there are ways to still eat food and love it. So I think there's that belief is one side of things, and the other side of things I found talking to moms here especially is that, like, but we like meat. We like the taste of meat. We like the flavor. We like what we can eat. So, for them, there's not necessarily a big reason to change that. It's because it's like, it's convenient. Everybody knows how to cook it. Their kids like to eat it. And there's like, just not that maybe that understanding that, like, well, we should change it for various reasons, and there are ways to do it. So I think there is a little ways to go in terms of, like, I guess, just creating awareness about why we should be eating more plants.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed is, for example, my children were actually given dairy products, but not that much, because when we came to China, this is 21 years ago, dairy just wasn't that available. Yeah. And my daughters are now in their 20s. So they didn't really get a huge amount. They got more of it when they were in their teens, and I used to turn it into yogurt, because I believe that being Eurasian, my children are half Chinese. I believe that they would digest it better if it was actually fermented, not realizing that the dairy itself, the protein and the casein in the dairy, was actually wreaking havoc with their health. I mean, my eldest daughter has severe gut issues, my youngest hormonal issues, and this is all traced back to the dairy, and we didn't even consume a great deal. But I do remember when I put my children through, we actually went through, they were in their teens, we went through a anti-candida program to sort of cleanse them, and the results were amazing. And I think that the reason why my children have still stayed relatively healthy is because they've had such an abundance of fruit and vegetables. But the dairy actually was causing problems, and it wasn't until they both cut it out. My youngest daughter, her skin cleared up enormously. My eldest daughter, her sleep got so much better. These are just things that we saw as a family. Now, from my observation, Chinese parents have really got it in their mind that their children must drink dairy. Whenever I've tried explaining to them, the Chinese parents are just, it's like, this is just too much for me to cope with. Yeah. You foreigners have told us that we have to drink dairy so that we'll grow as tall as you. So we're drinking dairy, and how dare you stop us from being as tall as you? And I've tried to explain to them that it's not the dairy, it's the number of calories and the quality of calories in your diet that is causing people to grow taller. And I pointed out that you don't want to be giving your child, growth hormones for a baby cow, when you could be giving them all the nutrients they need from plants. So what are your thoughts on the dairy industry and the brainwashing of the Chinese parents over here?
That's a big one.
It is a big one.
Okay. First point, dairy industry. So being a vegetarian at first for so many years, that's where I got a lot of my food was from cheese. I just I didn't care about drinking milk, but cheese and yogurt and cottage cheese, that was like a large part of what I ate. And it wasn't until I watched what the hell? Forks Over Knives.
Forks Over Knives, yep.
Forks Over Knives. I was watching that. It was actually shown as like a movie night in Happy Buddha. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So I started looking more into like the China study and looking at where that information came from. And I was just like in shock. I had no idea, because all growing up, we are told that this is healthy for us, it's good for us. And then you start, you're like, wait, this was all a lie. Why would they lie to us like that? So, and then, you know, you start to dig a little bit deeper. And then in Cowspiracy, they go into this a little bit as well. It's just like it's so much larger than any of us maybe really think of. It's about money at the end of the day. It's about making money. And China is a huge market. So of course there's been a lot done to try to make it easier for dairy products to enter the market. And yeah, that part is like that part is something as an average consumer before I never thought about, I never knew about, I never had a reason to care about really. So that I think it's a very powerful, you know, it's very powerful. The powers that be are very powerful, and I think like it's going to take a lot of awareness and advocacy to help like swing the pendulum back the other way, because as you said, people before they didn't have dairy, and that was actually a really good thing, but now it's going to be going the other way. Now they have access to so much of this of these dairy products, especially imported dairy products, that I think it's going to again just take some time. But I mean, not a good thing, but on one hand, so many people here are lactose intolerant, so that's something you don't have in the West. So that does help make it a little bit easier, because when I do start talking to people here about it and start discussing, oh, you know, dairy, it's not so great for you, and then, you know, most people here will say, yeah, I don't feel good when I eat it. Like my stomach hurts, I feel uncomfortable, I don't like how I feel after, but I think I have to have it. So, you know, at least they know they have that awareness of like, it doesn't make you feel good. So that's something that does make it a lot easier to explain, because they're feeling it, the effects of it immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So one of the things that with the medical, because I have the medical background, and also because I'm an integrated medical coach, I have a particular penchant for looking at the health complications of our dietary patterns. And so one of the things that I've been observing in China in the 21 years that I've been here is the increasing rates of diabetes. Diabetes not just in the adults, but also the diabetes in the children. And it's apparently just gone through the roof, the number of diabetics. So a lot of Chinese parents have no idea of the harm that they're actually doing their children from eating dairy.
Yeah, so it's really saddening, you know, because of course, like as a parent, you just care about your child being healthy. That's your number one concern in life, is making sure that your child is healthy. Because if they're healthy, they can do everything that you want them to do. And if they're unhealthy, their lives are going to be complicated. They're going to have more, have more harm done to their body. You know, diabetes for a child is so serious, and to think that, you know, more kids are going to have to go on insulin and you're going to have surgeries, it's just like breaks my heart.
Yes, one of the things that really surprises me, and I've been doing a lot more research on it because I want to give more support to parents with children with health issues. And I've noticed that some of the guidelines for parents of children with diabetes is completely opposite to what our plant-based doctors, such as Dr. Greger, Dr. Bernard, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. McDougall, are telling us to do with diabetic diets. For example, someone last night in a parent group on Facebook posted about how the Australian Diabetic Association is actually telling people to have a low carbohydrate diet. And I don't know how accurate that was, but this is the case over here in China. I've spoken to a couple of Chinese parents who have children with diabetes, and they have no idea that the children can actually have healthy carbohydrates, and they have no idea what that means. So they're basically feeding them a high protein diet without, and then that brings a whole lot of complications as well. You know, so that's the diabetes type 1, but there are also children coming down with diabetes type 2, you know, at a very early age. And we're seeing the threshold at which diabetes type 2, so for anybody who doesn't know this, diabetes type 1 is when the pancreas has been damaged and the insulin producing cells cannot produce insulin. And so a person who has diabetes type 1 has been basically deemed as being diabetic for life because the pancreas just cannot produce it. Whereas diabetes type 2 is that there is insulin produced, but there is a lack of ability to be able to use it. Now, the plant-based doctors have all taught us now that the reason why we can't use it is because it's locked up with oil. And so if we can take oil out of our diet, then we can use the insulin to, and we can actually reduce the amount of insulin in our system. So this sort of information isn't really getting into the Chinese community so much. There are a couple of Chinese sort of plant-based teachers, but not enough for the market, for sure. Yeah. So you're spending time educating Chinese parents. How do you feel about that? How's that going for you?
My approach has always been to get them to eat first. Get them to eat the food first. Give them some vegan cheese. Give them some vegan yogurt. Give them some, meatless, whatever it is. Just get them to eat it. Because once they eat the food, they realize that they don't have to sacrifice anything. It is not about what I'm giving up. I'm giving up meat. Oh, I'm giving up dairy. Oh, it's going to be so hard. Oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? I find that when I try to talk with people, even if it's from like I'm listening, I want to hear your issues, and then I want to help you, nothing has been as effective for me as feeding people first. That once they eat it, whoa, their minds are just like totally blown. They cannot believe that, number one, it's vegan. Number two, it tastes good. I mean, the things that you can do with food with a few simple ingredients, once you know the tricks, it's mind blowing. So I think that's what pushed me to open Happy Buddha. Part of it was just like, okay, how do I feed more people? So I opened a cafe. Well, that was a very expensive way to do what I wanted to do. And there's got to be a less expensive way to do it. So I'm working on that. But I think feeding people is the key, because I don't even have to try after that. Like, it's not like I have to overcome anything because their minds are open just by that first bite. And I think, I don't know if I need to start hosting dinner parties or what. And what is free food? Come to my house. I mean, it's still cheaper than the restaurant. I think once you do that, that just opens up everything. It opens up the door for a conversation that maybe people would be less reluctant to have if they hadn't have had the food. I carpool with one mom from Hong Kong, one mom from Taiwan. And I try to talk every day a little bit about, like, look at, Sandy, he's so tall and he barely drinks any milk. And, Max is so big. Look at, they're totally fine. They're so healthy. And I try to, everyone who will say, oh, your baby's tall. I'm like, oh, he's a vegetarian. Anyone who will listen to me when we go out and say that to them. Also, I think that, they're just, again, not aware. So I'm like, oh, have you tried this vegan yogurt? Now it's available on Hema. You can buy vegan yogurt, and it's so good. And they're like, what? Vegan yogurt? What? They're just like so mind blown by it. And then when you taste it, it's like, I don't even want dairy.
Is that the new one from Northern Springs?
Yes, it's so good.
It is. It's very good.
It's so delicious. And so there's that, and then I was saying, oh yeah, have you tried this like oat milk? It's so creamy. And they were like, what? Oat milk? What are you talking about? Oh, what? Like, kind of their minds are blown, which is so funny because you have soy milk and so many soy products which have been around for ages here. But it's just the idea that there are more options, because I love soy milk and I love soy, but I also don't always want everything to taste like soy. It tastes like tofu. So I think the fact that there are more options here is really cool. And once there are more options, I think people will easily give up dairy because it doesn't make them feel good, but they don't know what else to eat now.
Yes, sure. So that sounds really good. I mean, I can see the progress that's happening in the market as well, as we've got more, let me say this, non-Buddhistic style vegan products,
Yeah.
because there has been a lot of there's been a lot of mock meats available in the Buddhist community, but they didn't have the same mouthfeel for a lot of people who were non-vegans. And now we've got products such as Oatly and Just Egg. Have you tried that?
Yes, I was.
It's amazing.
It's like no one would ever know.
No, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. You just simply wouldn't know. And then 2 days ago, we had the interview with David Jung from Omnipork.
Yes.
And we had a discussion about possibly, did he have a plan of getting Omnipork into the schools? Because the schools feed the children a lot of pork in China. And pork is a very unsafe product because it's got parasites in it. It's very unclean. The poor piggies get many diseases that are very similar to human beings, and they can cross transfer over to human beings. So it's far better to go with something that's plant-based. So we've got all these new products, so that the food is actually there. It's not like it was even 4 years ago. It's just there. However, one of the issues that we've got is not so much, we can go out there and we can educate people about this, but what about prejudice? You mentioned that some people like the taste of meat, sure. And I think that we can do something about sort of wooing them over with nicely tasting food. But what happens when we come across people who just have this mindset that we have to eat animals and their secretions? Because this morning on Facebook, one of the parent groups, a mother was in tears. Her husband and his family were threatening to take away her child because she was raising the child on a plant-based diet, and the child was healthy, really healthy. So what are your thoughts on dealing with this, Lindsey? Because it happens. It really does happen.
I know I come from America. So, I know people there love their meat, and it's a very sensitive product. It's a very sensitive topic. To me, like there are, the reason I find it's so sensitive, it touches people's nerve, or it touches a nerve in people, is because when we talk about your food and what you eat, it's so personal because it's something that has been with you your whole life. The food you eat is the food that your mother cooked for you, the food that you ate with friends, the food that you ate with family. And then somebody now is telling you like that's not okay. It touches them very personally. So again, I think my approach there is like, well, number one, you're not going to reach all people. And I understand that there are some people that no matter how much information, education there is out there, that you won't reach them. Not to make it funny, but the other day my husband and I were talking about this, and he was like, well, we live in the age where like there's a whole group of people that think the earth is flat. They believe the earth is flat. It's a whole movement, and it's like you're not going to convince certain people, no matter what you do. And that's just something I think we have to accept. I think the other side is that, being in America, almost everybody does have somebody in their life who has been affected by a preventable disease, whether it be heart disease. My father-in-law, unfortunately, passed away of a massive heart attack at an early age after having open heart surgery, and his family is the same. His brothers are very similar. So I think in the U.S., everybody has someone close to them who has been affected by preventable diseases that have been brought on by an unhealthy diet. So I think that's kind of the way to approach it, is that we are spreading this knowledge because we really want you and your families to have a healthy and happy life. And I mean that when I tell people that from the bottom of my heart. I don't want anybody to suffer a loss of a family member too early. I don't want anybody to suffer themselves to go through unnecessary pain and suffering and have maybe we'll be living longer because medicine, Western medicine will be there to help us live longer. But those last years, if we continue this diet, are not going to be happy because you won't be able to do anything and you'll be
for sure.
dialysis or going into surgery. And that is not a way I want to live my life. Like I want to be like the Okinawans. I want to be 90 years old, tending to my garden, singing karaoke, doing my exercise. Like that's the life I want to live. And that's the life I want to help other people live as well.
Yep. I totally relate to that, Lindsay, totally. So what I'm going to do now is we've got a few people that have come to join us. I'm going to unmute our participants and see if we've got any questions from the audience. So Melody, Laura, and we have somebody else. Hang on a sec. Let me see. Unmute.
Okay, Laura has sent a couple of
we
questions.
have someone who's just a phone number at the moment. So, okay, so we've got probably about 10 minutes for open discussion. So would anybody like to raise a particular area of raising a vegan and plant-based children?
I see on here that Laura has written, just really quick, I want to jump in. Laura has written a question that she wanted to learn about tips and experience feeding kids particularly. So yes, I could definitely just maybe kind of give like a rundown of like a breakfast, lunch, and dinner sort of thing that I might do for the kids. Breakfast, sorry, I don't know how to go back to the top. Okay, good. So breakfast nowadays, we have like the dairy-free yogurt, which the kids love. We do a lot of like overnight oats. So oats with some plant-based milk, a little bit of maple syrup, some ground chia seeds. I put all that stuff in there. The kids they just think it's delicious. They don't have any problems with that. And they like the simpler food. Like sometimes when I do make pancakes and stuff, they do love it. I made breakfast tacos the other day, and my 4-year-old's a little bit pickier nowadays, but he was just like, he kept saying thank you. He's like, thank you, Mama, for this delicious food. Thank you for making this delicious food. Can we have this every day? And when you feed your kids and they have things like that to say, you're like, yes, zero success. So yeah, I just like feed what we feed them, but also like keep it simple, because the more complex stuff, sometimes they don't appreciate it. They're just not at that age, and that's fine. My husband and I will enjoy it, and then it's easier for me because I could give them the simpler stuff while I'm making the more complex dishes. For lunches, again, we usually go really simple. So I love cooking like a variety of different like tofu. Also some of the suji that you can get at the local market, the little vegan patties that are made of wheat gluten, really high in protein, have a great texture that the kids love. And then I'll use the simple sauce or marinade to do that. Usually it's just like a simple, like a little bit of soy sauce and a little bit of seasoning, some garlic and onion. And they really love that. I mean, my older son especially, he just loves tofu or loves the suji. He will just like mow down on that. Also use a lot of like, not a lot. Sometimes I'll use some TVP, because I try not to do like overly processed food. So I do, I am starting to learn more about that side of things, like the whole food plant-based side of things. But for texture, which you could also use lentils as well, that would have a similar texture. For the TVP, it's like, it looks like ground beef, but like again, you serve that in a taco, people will not question it because it's so great. It's like juicy, and it's there was a big hit at taco night. So also cashew cream cheese, cashew sour cream, tofu cream cheese. The kids love it. And yeah, it's just simple. We'll have some rice. I should do more brown rice, but I'm really like, I still need to be converted. I think a mixture will be good at first, because I love like long grain rice. I just love the texture of it and the flavor of it. But I know I need more whole grains. And just yeah, some easy, quick tofu and veggies, lots of veggies. So I like love going to the market and picking out the fresh seasonal veggies. You can also order a lot of veggie boxes these days, and it's it's just a quick, stir fry or a quick saute, and then we have all the dishes up on the table, and the kids, fill the kids' bowls up and just hope that they eat as much as as they can. And I know they won't always eat everything, but we keep trying to give it to them. And I think that's the thing here is like, even, like my mother-in-law especially, she's from the day where it's just like, oh, they're not gonna like that, oh, they don't like the healthy food, oh, it's so hard to do this and that. And but when I'm there, we just like, okay, just give it to them, go outside. If they don't like it, it's okay, they'll take a bite, that's all I ask. If you think you don't like it, just try one bite. If you really don't like it, it's okay, you don't have to finish it. So just really exposing them and letting them try. And if they don't like it, it's okay. They don't like meat sometimes dishes also, meat and egg and dairy dishes. So their kids, when they're going through a certain age, they just won't like certain foods, and that's okay. So sorry, I hope I answered your question a little bit, Laura.
Yes, thank you.
Melody, do you have a question for Lindsey and myself?
Yes, I was just going to the direction, what if the kids one day asking you, why can't we eat meat?
Well,
can I try?
So
what's your answer?
This is getting into the ethical vegan side of things. So the difference between being a plant-based parent and being a vegan parent. So we're talking about the ethical values of why we're not eating animals. Lindsey, do you have some of the books that have now been put out, the vegan books on raising children, such as the storybooks, Why We Don't Eat?
Yes.
You've seen a couple of them?
Yeah, I have a couple. I have one is like Why We Don't Eat Animals, and another one is, I forgot the exact name, but it's about this like alien, and he sees that people on Earth are eating meat, and he's so confused. He's like, why are they eating meat? Animals are so great. So, they're so smart. Why are people eating them? So those ones my kids like. So I did have this experience now because my older son is in school, and of course he's like the only vegetarian kid in the class. And they do, and he said to me one day, he came home from school and he said, I had meat today at school, Mom, and I liked it, and I want to eat meat again, it tastes good. And I was like, I was so heartbroken. But we had a conversation about why we don't eat animals. We watched a video, a kind of kid-friendly video that shows about why we don't eat animals. And I think it's still gonna be a struggle for him because he's the minority for sure. So I think it's gonna be a continuous conversation that we have throughout the years. And ultimately, I do want him to be able to make his own choices to some extent. And I think you just have to do that as a parent. You can educate and inform as much as possible, but also people also have to live their own lives and make choices as well. That's just my approach.
For sure. I have the same experience as a mother of daughters. I didn't raise my children vegan and not even really vegetarian, even though I was myself. But it's one of those things that I do hope that they go that way because of the whole compassion side of things, not just from the health point of view, but from the compassion side of things. And as an ethical vegan, it's fairly important to me to make sure that people understand the reason why they're making those choices. I just have a couple of books that I use to teach children. This one here is Vegan is Love. Okay? Mm-hmm. Vegan is Love. And I've read that to some of the children in our center here. And it's a very good book. The children like it. It's quite detailed though. There's another one about, and that's Why We Don't Eat Animals.
That's a really good one.
That it is a very good book. And it's probably a little bit more simpler. And this is another fun book. And there are books being written. This is Linus the Vegetarian T-Rex. And when I say vegetarian, he is actually a vegan. So he's a vegan T-Rex. And this is surprisingly founded on fact. They discovered some bones of some T-Rexes that had actually become plant-based. And that was in Ohio in America, I think. No, Utah, sorry. They discovered some of the bones in Utah that the dinosaurs had actually gone.
Oh my gosh, I need that book. My kid will just love it. He'll be like, oh, well, T-Rex was vegetarian, then of course I'm gonna be.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know, the pressure on parents to raise children to be socially acceptable and conform to the main group is quite high. So just before we finish off, I'd like to just open up a bit of a discussion is how can we give more support to parents to raise their children plant-based? Now, as Lindsey knows, she's on the group. I have a WeChat group for vegan parents. You know, I do a lot of work myself to try and teach children and parents about plant-based. I've shifted my focus to focus more on the adults at the moment because I was finding parents were dropping the kids off. I was teaching the kids were saying to me, Teacher Denise, we want to eat plant-based, we don't want to eat animals, but our parents don't understand, they're putting pressure on us. So I realized I have to start with the parents, not with the kids, which is kind of sad, but it's true. But how do we give more support to parents in China? How do we grow this? I'm throwing that out to the group, everybody.
Good question.
Well, I'm thinking it's really important that we educate them more. I think it's so good that you have this conversation on Zoom today. And even I have been a lifetime vegetarian. I've decided to stop eating animal when I was 5 years old. Wow. Until now. I've been 9 years vegan until I started lifting weights, and my coach said, you've got to consume some eggs, please. And 9 years later, I've tested, I have allergy for eggs. So I'm allergic to egg yolk, egg white, soybeans, cashew, pineapples. I mean, my life is like a constant struggle because I'm supposed to eat more variety of the food because I'm already plant-based eater, and still I'm allergic to so many things.
Yes.
However, still, you know, it's always the question, why don't you eat meat? Where do you get your protein? It's like, you know, everyone, if I get a nickel from everyone that asks me a question, I'll be a billionaire. Seriously. Right? So I just tell them, well, the thing is, let me introduce you different beans, chickpeas, black beans, great source of protein, easy to digest, and will be actually utilized by your body. And trust me, you don't have the enzyme, you don't have enough enzyme in your body, excuse me, to digest meat protein. Some of them are really hard to break, and you think you can eat a lot, but the human body is not designed that way. And that has to, like, you know, it's like taking me a lot of explanation. First, I'm a certified fitness coach, and sort of like also a part-time dietitian, because I had a degree, minor subject, studied in university about nutrition and about human body and the and therefore they will buy my story, and they will actually start looking to research and even to try to verify my story, and then they came back to me and saying, oh, actually you're right.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, yeah, I always motivate people. I always tell, okay, don't trust me, verify my story, and then you come back to me. So it's my way to work with the people around me. Even hardest part was to convince my parents that I am healthy enough without eating meat.
Yes, yes.
It's a topic that lasted 30 years.
Yeah.
Eventually I'm here, and then they are okay with me eating all plant-based food.
Yeah, I think that's another layer of things, is like, because so many moms, like you know, so many moms I know, like they're not the ones necessarily making the cooking decisions, like the eating decisions. Like maybe they have parents or in-laws living with them who are doing the cooking, or they have an IE who is doing the cooking. And you know, that's a whole new world for them. You know, how do you explain that to them? And the parents, especially, I know here, it's a very long road. Like you said, like 30 years.
Yeah, you have to have balanced nutrition. You're not getting enough from the vegetables. Wow.
Yeah, 37 years plant-based.
Look at that.
57 years old. And I, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm, people look at me and say, yeah, you shouldn't be like that. It's like, yes, I should.
Yeah.
Have you thought about elephants and cows and giraffes and things that are all plant-based?
Exactly. I think in Shanghai, if you guys are living in Shanghai, it's a much, how to say, more international environment for you guys to spread the message. I'm living in Qinhuangdao, which is
I'm living in Ningbo.
Yeah, well, in China, it's still a small city, right? It's so difficult. They're so stubborn about it's good to eat meat. Now we finally can afford eating meat every day. We should take the chance.
And that's why they're getting sick. That's why so many Chinese people are getting sick. I'm going to have to wrap things up here now. It's been a wonderful discussion. So one of the things I'd like to just find out is what's your biggest takeaway from today, from the discussion, everybody? Melody, what would be your biggest takeaway from today?
I've got ideas flying in my head. I was just thinking maybe Denise should take some photos and then we share in our group, and you know, just showing people that how healthy and fit you can be eating just plant-based food. And I would like to even start my own WeChat group just to spread the message and educate more people that it's healthy and it's not going to make you look any worse than you already are.
I also administer a group called No Meat Athlete, and I'm getting myself fit. I've got my gym membership back on. I want to start showing people that you can get past 55 and be really ripped from a plant-based diet. So personal examples, are really important. So yeah, that's really good. Thanks, Melody. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Laura, what's your takeaway from today?
Oh, lots of little takeaways. I'm not sure what the biggest one is. I was quite excited to know that there's actually the vegan yogurt available online right now. I could come out with it. I knew it was coming. I live in Beijing. Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, we're a pretty small group, 2 presenters and 2 listeners. Both of us listeners seem to be relatively long-term on board with everything. I think that, the question is, how do you reach a larger audience? I feel that I regularly, and I mean, we all regularly face challenges the minute people learn from you, even if you haven't brought up the topic that you eat plant-based, you're immediately suspect of wanting to convert other people or somehow holding yourself in a higher position than others. And half the times I'm just grateful if someone will leave me alone and let me eat my dinner. On the other hand, I have reasons for the way I eat, and I feed my children the way I feed them because I care about them so much, because I want them to incorporate a sense of home that is healthier than what I knew growing up and healthier than what they would otherwise get if I weren't on this kick. I see people eating in different ways, and oftentimes citing things like social media as the reasons for why they believe what they believe, not just traditional beliefs here or anywhere. I'm also from the US. But I think that might be one way to reach people. Really, I mean, it already is. Social media is full of all sorts of things. But I think works like, the China study, come on, that's got to be translated.
It is. It's translated into Chinese. It's
right. But the question is, how can we make that bigger and more available? Because there's one thing about, outside influences coming in and saying, this is the way to do it. The other thing is about sort of a sense of having homegrown knowledge. And people are really open to information, and it's spreading so much more quickly. So I think you know, you're right on with these groups that you've started, Denise. And Lindsey, I really like your blog. I just started perusing it. I've made some comments. I really like it. Yeah, so thank you for the contact, and thank you for talking. So it's really the connection today that has been the biggest takeaway for me. If that's
yeah, I often tell my students when they come into my programs, I say to them that I can teach you how to cook, I can show you how to use the ingredients, I can go through all the nutritional reasons why you should do what you should do. And I said, but it's actually more important to have the social contact, because people who go plant-based or vegan, and let's face it, they can be separate, they can be together, but people who do follow that path, we often are socially isolated and ostracized. So I find it's really important to create communities within communities to encourage and support. And after 3 years of running Essential Wellness, I'm starting to finally see that.
great.
So Lindsey, would you like to wrap up everything, let everybody know your thoughts and what you'd like people to take away?
Yeah, so I would just say, you know, I think it's great. Like, guys, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep sharing on social media. I think that is the most powerful way. Like, I'm constantly sharing what I cook. I'm constantly sharing, you know, what I make. And I think that helps, because you don't think really people are paying attention because maybe they don't like, or maybe they don't comment. But then, like, later on, you'll get a message from somebody that's like, oh, hey, like, can you help me? Like, the other day, I helped somebody make vegan cheese for his pizzas at his Italian restaurant. And then yesterday, I was working with Kate and Kimmy to help them launch like a number of new vegan items. And it's like, you might not think people are listening or watching, but they are. You know, it's a lot of work to push the like button for some people. You know, it's like, but it doesn't mean they're not watching. So don't be discouraged if you don't see a lot of engagement, because I think it's like we have a lot of people, you know, that they're looking. They might not comment, they might not like, but they are watching. And the more they see from more people, it makes it more acceptable. And not only acceptable, but
I agree. Yeah.
I would love to like keep connecting with you guys. So I know like I'm on WeChat with some of you, but if you'd like to get on WeChat with me, it's Lindsey_fine, and my blog is veggiemamablog.com, and on Instagram it's veggiemama.cn. So lots of ways to keep up with everything, and I hope we can like continue this conversation virtually for a long time to come.
Sure. Well, I'll be making a schedule of some interviews, and we may be having some more guests. I think the topic of parenting and raising, plant-based and vegan children is it's one that we need a lot more education on, particularly here in China. So I'll be going back to Australia in a couple of weeks' time. We'll see who will be able to come and have a chat with us.
Right.
Okay. So. and you know what, it's funny because I'm getting a lot of people sort of saying there's some really interesting things happening over in China. So we're doing things. We are having an impact. It starts with us, and then it'll ripple out.
Yes, for sure.
It's a big thumbs up to all the veggie mamas.
Yay. And future veggie mamas.
And future veggie mamas too. So thank you everybody for being here. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing everybody again.
Thank you very much for the talk. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.